Can we get to the next person? Leader of third party.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Coastal GasLink has been found to have violated multiple environmental requirements over the past year and a half. Over the course of constructing their natural gas pipeline in Wet'suwet'en territory, CGL's failures to comply with environmental requirements have resulted in damaged habitat, eroded waterways, and the contamination of watersheds and pollutants. Inspections in late 2020 by the Environmental Assessment Office found that coastal GasLink activities are harming watersheds. In early 2021, independent erosion and sediment control auditors found that CGL was violating 8 out of 9 requirements. Coastal GasLink have failed to reclaim and restore the waterways that they have polluted. The company's infractions have impacted Indigenous rights as well. In July, Coastal GasLink was issued a warning after wrongly blocking a Wet'suwet'en woman from attempting to monitor pipeline construction in her territory. My question, Honourable Speaker, is to the Minister of Environment and Climate Change. On the one hand, the RCMP have eagerly enforced an injunction on behalf of CGL and this government's fossil fuel expanding agenda. And at the same time, there have been multiple instances of environmental violations on the CGL pipeline since construction began, with little or no enforcement. What will the minister do to ensure timely enforcement of these environmental violations?
Minister of Environment and Climate Strategy.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, and thank you to the member for the question. Coastal GasLink, as part of its environmental assessment certificate, has to abide by a number of conditions, has to continue to abide by those conditions. Staff and inspectors that are part of the Environmental Assessment Office have regularly conducted inspections. They have issued orders. They have issued directions. When they found those directions were not being complied with, they upped the level of inspection, and they have issued more orders and are now going through the process of considering the application of administrative penalties to make the point. We take the conditions on the certificate seriously. I continue to be briefed by staff, but I don't take over the role of staff in ensuring that an orderly application of orders and ultimately penalties if required are administered.
Leader of the third party, supplemental.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Administrative penalties, but no police raids yet, I understand. It's clear that this company has been harming the environment, and this government has abdicated its responsibility to the public interest. This abdication extends to basic charter rights, too. Last week, 2 journalists were illegally arrested when reporting in Wet'suwet'en territory. They were jailed for the entire weekend and only released yesterday. We're now learning that the RCMP had been tracking these specific journalists, which makes it very hard to understand how the police were saying, we didn't know that they were journalists when we arrested them. Yesterday, more than 40 news outlets and journalists signed a letter directed to the Minister of Public Safety of this House, calling on him to uphold the rule of law and ensure that police actions are not infringing on press freedom. This isn't the first time this government has restricted press freedom. The summer enforcement of media exclusion zones at Ferry Creek was found to be unlawful. And I think all of us, no matter where we stand on these issues, should be deeply concerned. Because the role of the media and press freedom in democracy is essential, and we don't want to have these continuing stories where we are looking very much not like a democratic country in the way the press are being treated here. My question for you, Honourable Speaker, is to the Minister of Public Safety and the Solicitor General and Deputy Premier. He has said that press freedom is important, and yet what we have seen in this province this year tells a very different story. What will he do to ensure that the charter-protected freedom of the press, recently reiterated by Justice Thompson in a BC Supreme Court decision, is upheld in this province?
Minister of Public Safety and Solicitor General.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I thank the member for the question. And I have to take issue with a couple of points. The first being, government has not infringed on freedom of the press. Freedom of the press is a fundamental foundation of our democratic system in this province and in this country, and continues to be so, and we take that very seriously. The second point that I would also make is that when it comes to the enforcement of a court-ordered injunction, that is done by the police. It is not directed by myself as a Solicitor General, and as I have said before in this House, nor should it be. What I can also tell the member that when it came to the issue of the journalists, that went in the appropriate place in terms of the court, who issued a decision around bail and the undertaking which the journalists agreed to do, and they were subsequently released. So in other words, the judicial process worked appropriately, and that's as it should be, not being directed by politicians